It's 7 o'clock on the dot. No drop top. I ain't cruising the streets. But we're here to talk about business or to talk to our business owners today, our entrepreneurs, our aspiring entrepreneurs. Hello. How are you? I'm a little hoarse. Anniversary weekend. Exciting day at church yesterday. I've given it my all in my voice wise. I'm gone. But I want to keep our date today. So if you're here, please take a moment to share, to invite people to the thread. Today is going to be a good day on here. We're getting a lot of positive feedback on all the information shared and everything that we're doing. So we definitely want to keep the momentum and stay with our weeks. Okay, more people sharing. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And this week, I'm back to our sponsor. I'm a little biased. This is Think Black. Kelsey Parker, entrepreneur who started Think Black, a app that basically promotes Black businesses across the U.S. Kelsey's my daughter. She started it during the pandemic as a way to do something positive with all the attention going to Black businesses and the Black community. So applaud her, support the app at thinkblack.net. Also, you can buy merchandise like this, cool sweatshirt, t-shirts online as well. And this week, because we've been getting a lot of questions, a lot of legal questions, a lot of questions regarding exiting the business, we thought we'd bring in someone who not only has a firm, but is a business person, is an entrepreneur, and by all means, in all aspects of the word, but also is successful at it. She thrived in corporate America and then came over into practicing as an entrepreneur in her own firm. We bring in Miss Paulette Lundy, Esquire. Paulette, how are you?
Good evening.
We have the attorney on. We have an attorney on this week. And a hint, this will not be the last attorney, but we're bringing in the specialist. And in this area, Paulette is the one you need to hear from today. Just her story about how she got started. And the great thing about Paulette is an attorney, but Paulette also is a person of faith, which guides her business in a major way. And we always know those who understand they're not self-made. They have a different type of love here. So we just want to welcome you today. We're going to talk about concepts to cash flow. So
I love it.
We want to hear about how you went from concept to cash flow. Tell us, and then obviously you would have gone to law school. So how'd you get started?
My goodness.
Yes.
Well, it was a long journey indeed. You know, it starts with the dream, Quay, and then you fantasize about who you can be, what you can do. But I started first actually practicing as an attorney, prosecuting first in Brooklyn, New York for about a year. And when I started prosecuting my neighbors, I figured this might not necessarily be a safe career for me. So so then I moved into the civil arena and worked for the New York City Transit Authority as in-house counsel doing labor and employment, and then moved out to Maryland eventually. Well, actually, first pit stop at the New York City Fire Department right after 9/11. And then I eventually left in 2006 and made my way here to Maryland and worked shortly for Governor Ehrlich, then O'Malley. And then eventually I went to a private organization and stayed there for about 10 years as a VP of HR, but, undercover doing a lot of their legal work, and then eventually went out on my own. And now I am here as the principal and founder of the Lundy Law Group, and I am loving it.
Loving it.
Yes.
So when did you branch out on your own and open your own practice, your own firm?
So in 2016, I started with an HR consulting company, which I also have. I don't talk to you about that as often, but so I have an HR consulting company right now, as well as my law firm. But I started the HR consulting company in 2016 and then the law firm in 2017. So I've been doing this for goodness, over 5 years.
Okay. What prompted the starting of the firm?
Oh goodness. I just love helping people, Quay. As you mentioned, I'm a woman of faith and I had been doing it all before. So even before having my law firm, I had been doing wills for people, assisting people in, whatever needs they have, being a resource, making sure that you didn't even have to ask. I'm one of those people, if I overhear a conversation, it's like the head swings around and I'm giving you information. And that's just who I have been designed by God to be, is to help people to accomplish their dreams, their goals, their aspirations, to pass on information. Information is not mine to keep, to hoard, or, to be stingy with. It is for me to help other people to expand and to achieve.
So you operate for free?
Not all the time. But let me tell you something. The measure of success, in all honesty, is, what you're willing to give to people. You got to give a little to get a lot.
You know what? But again, I'm sure that law school that you went to wasn't free.
My goodness, not at all.
And I found that we value information we pay for.
That's right.
Although we do these platforms to give people an opportunity to get some general questions answered, I segue this to say, this is not to think that all the information you get as far as legal guidance and legal counsel should come from free platforms. These are general messages that are not to be applied as across the board applying, because your situation may merit different courses of action or different strategies. We're talking about things from a general perspective.
That's right. So, and that's a good disclaimer, but let me add to it. This is not legal advice.
Yeah.
Not your attorney.
She'll be your attorney of preference.
That's it.
But you have not retained her because you're tuning in.
This is information for informational purposes only. This is a 3-page disclaimer.
I love it. Now, when you say help people, I'm going to something, because like each week I am starting to be really, a lot of people are now coming in across my path who are sharing dreams that they have and aspirations of businesses, or businesses that friends are opening. Someone shared a business with me today that a friend is opening in DC. They're looking to open a deli in DC metro area. Can't say where, but great concept. The interesting question becomes that I asked is why? What I find, and the great thing about the answer is she had a reason based upon research and need, where I find frequently that a lot of people come with a passion for something and then try to push it into the marketplace. Do you find that with clients that they come with a passion for something and push in the marketplace versus saying, I realize that there's no ice in a 10-mile radius. I think it would be a good idea to provide ice or sell ice here. Absolutely. Is that your feedback from clients that you typically get?
I do get, the dreamers, what I call the dreamers. It's that they've heard something. And unfortunately, as of late, I've seen something on TikTok and I think that I can do it because the person who said it on TikTok made it look so easy. My friend, or I would get the young men that say, my man is doing this and that, and he told me that I should do it. So it doesn't come informed, meaning they have not done their research. And it could just be a passion or a hobby that they think will fuel, their life or support their lives. And it just doesn't happen that way, which is why we then see, businesses that either start up and don't go anywhere, or they've started up and then they fail. And then you wonder why now, the entity is now forfeited because they didn't know what it took to keep it. And so I'm often counseling people, not so much against their idea, but just to make sure that they understand what it takes to start up and sustain, to start up and then scale up. And so it sometimes is a real educational session with individuals.
Yes. Have you gotten a perspective, or I'll say, this is what I've gotten, I'm not trying to project it on you, that in coming with that level of vetting as an encouragement to people that you can make it, some of my approaches have always been, I love the idea. Passion is great. We can wave the pom-poms, but it's the pitfalls that will get me in trouble. And when you point out the pitfalls, I can imagine being legal counsel, or people even approach you from a legal standpoint that you have to sometimes point out the pitfalls in what they're planning. How do you do that without pouring the water on the passion?
Sure. It's very conversational, never confrontational. And so I would ask people, like you say, why? Or what's your idea? Tell me more. So when you hear me say, tell me more, that means I just want you to talk so that I can get more information from you before I actually start to, just unpack it for you. And sometimes it's about asking questions. Have you thought about XYZ? And they would say, well, no. And then they'll ask, tell me more. And so I will begin to give them more information for them to think about. So it's about giving and sharing information for them to go back and think about it. I love, of course, any business opportunity that comes our way, we look at it and determine if we want to become entangled with it. But when you have individuals who come prepared with their research and they understand the market and they're answering a question in the marketplace, as you mentioned, I know that ICE would work in this particular area because there's no delivery. It's 20 miles outside of, the local store, whatever the case may be. If you've done your research and you understand the market and you understand the competition or the lack thereof, and you know that you can be answering a question, or you can be preparing yourself to be the provider of needed resources, then that's who, gets me really excited, because then we can do some really exciting things. They understand what goes into this whole equation of being an entrepreneur. And they'll also understand, when you talk about the pitfalls and you talk about the things that could either stop or slow down the process, it won't be a shock to them. And they may already actually have an answer or a plan B for that. And so those are really great conversations.
And you explore those. Now I'm gonna make it interesting for the audience. I can pick on you because Paulette, for people that don't know, these are my smart friends. These are Paulette and Troy. Troy's brilliant engineer. And Paulette, those kids are destined for greatness just because of their genes.
Listen, we talk about you all the time. Troy said, when you look at Quay and he's quiet for a minute, then he come drop some, Pulitzer Prize knowledge on you. And
oh, we love y'all. But so I want to hear this story. Tell us about that first year opening the practice.
Ooh, look at here.
The good, the bad, the ugly. Please share it.
Ooh, Jesus. So, I love it when you see business owners come out and everything looks wonderful. Of course, you're not going to come out and be crying out in the street, when all the issues are hitting you. Who's going to come to you, right? But the resilience comes, it comes into play when you're dealing with, all of those things that are coming at you. Today, do you have the money to pay the bills to keep whether it's the lights on so that you can continue to operate, or the resources that you need? So it's trying to form, like any team or group, that there are stages of development. And so, that forming is difficult because you're trying to establish your business while you're trying to market your business, while you're trying to answer the phones. And so, especially if you're that that entrepreneur that's just operating solo, a true solo, you're trying to be everything, and sleep is just a luxury. And you do it every so often when you can, but it is really challenging because if you're truly out there as a business owner, and that is your sole means of income. Now, of course, I come from a 2-income home where myself and my husband contribute, but we contributed, or we came together based on both of our incomes. And so we established our lives based on both of our incomes. So when one of you, one of us goes out and establishes a business, trying to ensure that you're keeping the family relevant and above water is not easy. And when I made that transition from the corporate to business, it wasn't easy. It wasn't easy because you're starting literally with 0 clients. And if you were fortunate to have some savings where you could kind of like situate yourself for a short period of time, that comes to an end as well. So the first year was pretty, rockety, but I tell people, don't jump out until you have to. And what I mean by that is I started in my home. in my basement. I started, and then as time went on and I was able to come out and I saw some consistent cash flow, then I went in and I rented my space. And in the interim, while I was at home, if I needed to have meetings, I had a business, address down the road, and I would go and rent their conference rooms to have meetings, or I have lunch meetings wherever you need to have it. And so I think sometimes we want to start too large. We want to be where we envision immediately, and that could be the thing that causes you to fall back or to have to, scale back. So you start small, not, we like to say, don't despise small beginnings.
I
Start
was
small.
thinking that same.
And because also when you are a business owner, you are on like your own fiduciary, if you will. So you have to make sure that you're spending, you're using your assets appropriately. You're using your time appropriately. You're spending accordingly. You're not overspending. You're not underspending, that you get the resources and the systems that you need in order to function. My commitment in this company, as well as others that I've had before, is that I am not going to operate like a bootleg corporation, or something where you didn't have a resource. You're speaking with a client and you couldn't continue the conversation, or you couldn't do the work for them because you didn't have a salient thing that you needed. And so because I committed to be ethical, because I committed to excellence, because I committed to not over promising and under delivering, I had to take my time to scale up. And it wasn't that I was trying to be the best overnight, but I knew that that was my goal. And so I started small. I struggled. Thank God, you had, when you have someone in your corner to cheer you on. There were days where I just didn't think I could do this thing. And I would earn more money faster and more consistently if I went back out into, corporate. But that wasn't the plan that God had for me. And I'm grateful that I listened. I'm grateful that I struggled, because I really cherish what I have. I respect what I have. I respect my time, my resources, and I charge what I charge, because I'm worth it now at this point, right?
Absolutely.
When you put in the time, you can say, this is what I offer you. No equivocation.
And I've seen you at work, and you don't do anything second rate. Everything you do, and everyone I've sent has given positive feedback, even if it's just a phone call. You just add value.
Amen.
What is it like? So you have the pastor of positivity living in your house, cheering you on.
Yes, I do.
As a couple, that's challenging, because it's difficult, because I've seen sometimes where the two compete.
Oh yeah.
But you all have found that balance of knowing who goes forward when.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
How did you work that out?
We're still working it out. Clay. We're still working it out. In fact, on Saturday morning, we done fussed about who was going to talk first and who was going to talk second. What was the flow? But what I love about that is it keeps you on your toes, and when I want to give up, he doesn't let me. In fact, if he needs to do a photo shoot, it's a fight, because I want to do my work, but he needs me to do a photo shoot because he has a marketing plan, and so it's a constant struggle, because although we are working toward the same end, meaning we want the Lundy Law Group to be successful, we want the consulting company to be successful, we have different roles. And so those roles will compete at times, because he may have an agenda for me, and that's not on my plan. Like the other day, I think I had a plan. It was, I think, Saturday, and I had a plan, and I was going to do this, I was going to do that. He walked into the office, and I promise you, he stole 5 hours of my time, because on his mind was XYZ, and he wanted to flesh it out. So it is a true partnership of when he's up, I'm down. When I'm down, or when I'm up, he's down, or whatever the case may be. And we help to balance each other out. But it's not all fun, and it's not all roses. It's not all smiles. In fact, he does get on my nerves quite often, but I love what he's doing. And he's the adjutant at times, and I'm the adjutant at times. But you work together. And that's the whole thing, is that even when we get into a place where we disagree, we know that we're working together. So we're not the enemy, although he looks like it from time to time. We're not the enemy. And so we just keep moving forward, and hopefully at the end of the day, we have reached the goal that we've set out for that day, that week, that month, or that year.
And you all make it look so good. You must be like ducks, because it looks very calm on the outside.
On the surface.
Troy, I know, but I'm always like, I gotta be more like him.
Oh, please. Coming from Mr. and Mrs. Quay, are you kidding me?
Because it's a balance, and we're both entrepreneurs, and
Yes.
you're both entrepreneurs, and you're working together and learning how to bring your strengths together. Yes. That's always challenging, because a lot of people that come to me who are entrepreneurs, their number one issues they have fighting their business growth is their household.
Yes.
They can't win in the marketplace because they're losing at home.
Yes.
So when you said you're working towards the same end, but the daily priorities may differ, always remember you're working towards the same end. That you could drop the mic on that one right there alone, but we got another half. But more than that, that's something to keep in mind. Do you and your partners, whether it's your household partners who are your informal board of directors or your real partners, do you share the same objective? That's good. That's good.
It's and what makes it great, Quay, is that you don't. Why I appreciate Troy and anyone else who I work with is that we should all be working towards the same end. But because we're different individuals with different experiences, that diversity in thought actually helps to scrub, the agenda. It helps to scrub the goals for the day. And so, for instance, I have a lovely attorney, and she would come in and literally say, "This is on my agenda today." Her agenda incorporates me. And I would say, well, that's not on my agenda today. But what she makes me do is to think, is my agenda the right agenda for the day? And so her contributions to that discussion is so important, because she's coming with it from a different perspective. And I committed earlier on, when I decided to bring her in, I said, in order for this to work, because I work really effectively on my own, in order for this to work, I need to actually listen. And so I told her, I'm committed to listening to you. And so when she comes in with her different agenda, I stop and I look at her. My mind is saying, what are you talking about? And who are you? But then my heart says, did she say something that you need to pay attention to? And I'm going to tell you 9 times out of 10, she does. So when you have other people who are truly in your corner, who are truly, they really care about the success, the longevity, the continuity of your business, you should listen to them, because they bring in a different perspective that can help you succeed. And so I love my team, because they make me look real good. And that's really important, is to align yourself with people who are making impact even in your place. And so that you can serve your client base or whomever it is that you're serving with excellence.
Indeed. How big is your firm now? Like, how many employees do you have?
We're under 10. I want to say around 7. Around 7.
Good.
We had one part. Yeah.
So it's a lovely. Yeah.
It's a lovely team. And that didn't happen overnight. That's the other thing, is that you have to take your time to develop your team. And so from very early on, Troy and I sat down and we had a business strategy session, and we said at our maximum capacity, or when we think that we're operating at the level at which we would like, we identify what that is, and who would the players be. And so we when the time comes, we plot in and punch in those individuals, but we're growing accordingly, not too fast and not too slow.
It's good. It's good. You shared some of the good things. What were your biggest, if you were to say, looking back, because I want to take it to a higher note.
Sure.
What would you say was a business? You're not obviously a one-time entrepreneur. I know this. Mm-hmm. What was something that maybe you all tried as entrepreneurs that didn't work? And how did you deal with that?
Sure. It's, I would say, actually, one of the companies that we've left behind is getting into something that really wasn't I'm going to say a passion. And when I say that, I don't mean just, oh, yeah, gung ho, but really that we didn't necessarily have the passion to go the distance, didn't have the passion to do the research, didn't have the passion to withstand the ebbs and flows. And so Troy and I had several other businesses, and one was pretty short lived because when we came upon the issues, if you will, we looked back and said, this is not something that we're willing to undertake. But we went into it not knowing, it was a good idea. It was presented as a good idea, and with opportunity. And so we tried it, not realizing that, if the staff that we hired or the independent contractor that we hired to do something flaked on us, that we would, have to go and retrieve our assets in a different state. And so things like that, if you're not in for the long haul, if you're not equipped actually to deal with those disturbances and those setbacks, then you really are not ready to do that business. So starting something that, as I mentioned earlier, that we hadn't really researched and hadn't really understood the industry they're in. And so as an entrepreneur, that's an absolute no-no. You need to know the ins and outs of the industry that you want to excel in. You need to know the ins and outs. You need to watch the industry. You need to know who's making waves in the industry, who's the loudest in the industry, and why are they succeeding, and those who may have come and disappeared, why. So really studying it to understand that when you get into it, you've already seen this and you know how to overcome it.
Do you think after that, do you think that Shirley wanting to make money is a good reason to start any business?
It's the last reason, in all honesty, because that just may not happen. It may not happen for many years. You may suffer a loss, and still, if you're committed to it, kind of repositioning yourself, knowing that, okay, this is how this happened, or this is what I did. Maybe you didn't even do anything wrong. Sometimes it's timing, sometimes it's location, sometimes it's, the industry and whether or not we're dealing with a recession. So it could be so many different things that impact your money and the flow of your money. And so if that's all you're looking forward to, you just might make decisions that will be short-term and not necessarily help you in the long run. And so you have to do it because, like you mentioned earlier, that you're answering a question, you're providing a service, you're doing something that is needed in the community or in the nation, however large you are. And that, money, of course, is the thing that comes out of it. And I'm not saying don't desire that. I'm saying don't let that be the only thing that you're looking forward to, because there could very well be decisions that you make that would be the wrong thing.
Mr. Lundy spoke, so I have to put him up here.
Let's hear what he has to say.
Undercapitalization of businesses is a big problem not taken into consideration. God, yes.
Yes,
especially
indeed.
in our community. And I won't even say just financial capital, Troy. I'll say human capital.
Human capital.
Because frequently we don't like working for us. We'll work for other people before we work for ourselves, or we'll compete versus collaborate. But just institutional money is not as available. Whether I'll say it because I'm in the banking sector, and I can tell you firsthand, it's just not as readily available.
Yeah,
it's getting better, but we just don't have the relationships to bring the resources in all cases. So we need networks of each other to pull together to make changes in that. Speaking of which, I don't know about you, but I've never been capitalized to do anything I've done.
Well, I'll say this. One of the best pieces of advice that I received, because, we like to bank with, the big banks. I'm not going to call any names, but we like to bank with the big banks. We think that that's a good idea all the time. I'll just say that people need to pay closer attention to some of the smaller banks that are in their community, and to establish a relationship. And so I'd been with a big bank for a really long time, and after getting that piece of advice, I walked into a smaller bank, and I'm extra special, so I walked in and I said, I'd like to speak with the branch manager, and the woman looked at me like, "Who are you?" And she said, "Well, she's busy. Can I take a message?" I said, "Yes. I just would like to talk to her because I'd like to transfer my 12 accounts to this branch, but I'd like to interview you." She ran to the back and got the branch manager in 1 minute. And we sat there, we bonded, and now I'm with that bank. They extended capital, and now I send my clients there, not as a kickback, but because I love how she did business.
Mhm.
And so sometimes, you have to go and find that smaller company that is willing to partner with you and to help ensure your growth. And I love the move that I've made. And so we need
Can
to.
you plug the bank? Can you plug the bank?
Do I? I'm not plugging the bank.
Yeah, plug. All right. Tell me when we get offline.
I'll tell you when we get offline.
That's important. It's irony here, and we're going to get it back to the topic. A bishop I met with for breakfast this morning, and he was saying that he's approaching a major financial institution with some questions that want to partner. And he said, "What questions should I ask?" I said, "One of the main questions we should ask is, what does your board of directors look like first? Are we there? Where do you have anybody with similar beliefs or faith that I have on that board? What do you fund? And do you fund projects that don't look like us or things that we value in our community?" And the last one, I think, was really one that we don't always think of frequently, was outside of your mortgage and your mortgage lending and your auto loans, because those are secured and often highly regulated where they have to do it and they don't have much risk. What do your arbitrary lending practices look like?
What are your lending practices? What's your business philosophy?
Especially
Who are your other partners? What causes and interests do you pursue? Not that everybody has to come to you, but who are you pursuing? What are you pursuing? You want to get into, as much as you can, you want to get into the mind of your partners to understand how they think, to ensure that when they're making those considerations, one, it's similar to what you would be considering. It's similar to the ideals and the values that you have. And so, and I'll share this with you because you just said something that hit a core. I have reached out to a number of businesses that look like you and I, and crickets. And so who do I see? I see other communities who are reaching out to me. And so that was one thing that I think helped me to understand partnership. Partnership is not about ethnicity. Partnership is not about color. Partnership is about anyone who maintains the same ideals and values that you have, and who show an interest in your organization, your business, your purpose. And so sometimes we shy away from branching out to others who don't look like us, who may not speak like us, who are not from our backgrounds outside of town. Well, that's the biggest mistake that you're making. The biggest mistake that you're making. And I think it was recently that TD Jakes said that, money is green. And so if what you're trying to do is, to get money, like the young folks say, to get the bag, then you have to expand your network and, expand your reach. Bottom line, you can't scale up all the time with everybody who looks like you, who, would just kind of mimic, your lifestyle. You have to diversify, both in your investments in money, business, as well as people.
Absolutely. My business has to employ the right people, but what we do with the resources, I'm very community driven with that.
Yes.
But making it, we have to, do you think that sometimes we don't give our own businesses enough grace? Like, for example, if we're undercapitalized, we obviously might have fewer human capital resources available,
Mm-hmm.
people
Mm-hmm.
to help staff. We might not have the availability to maintain the shifts and the different people. I've personally had to establish a higher level of grace for our businesses, because the only way we'll get to the level of that excellence, I find, is not that we don't have the desire. We just always have the resources.
Yeah.
I wish that all the businesses that sometimes fall a little short of my desired expectations had the ability to have the resources, because I believe their hearts and intentions align with the best of excellence. But what I find when they come to us is frequently they come too late, looking for capital, or they just can't get the capital they need to be there. So you said that before early stages, you were bootstrapping it, you were doing it all.
Mm-hmm.
But have you experienced those nights? I don't know, but I asked this question. That Thursday night lump in the throat. God, where is the money I need tomorrow going to come from?
That's an over the glasses look. Let me tell you something.
Rams in the bush.
Listen, I tell you something. There is nothing more passionate than the prayer of an entrepreneur. When all you can say is Jesus, you know.
If you don't pray, you will start praying.
You will stop praying in all kinds of tongues. Listen here. So many a times, and then what we have to understand too is that sometimes the entrepreneur either doesn't get paid or gets paid last. Because what you have to do is ensure that you keep, I used to hate hearing people say, keep the lights on. I now understand we want to keep the lights on. We need to keep the lights on. And so, there are times where it's Wednesday, and payroll is Friday, or things are getting ready to happen, and you're praying because maybe you actually are about to close a deal, or you close the deal and you're now, I love it when, it's time for payment and they won't put the check in the mail. You're like, no, we could do this differently. But it happens all the time, and you have to actually have the fortitude for that. You have to be able to keep pushing, because my God, I remember many nights where I didn't sleep because I'm like, Lord, there were times where I kept looking at the phone because I just wanted to hear that ping. And so it's not all fun. And it's not all roses. Some days it's like I have a lump in my throat. My heart is beating, but to God be the glory. When He told me that this is what I was going to do, He said that He will take care of me and never leave me nor forsake me. But He didn't say that I wouldn't have some concerns. He didn't mention that. And so,
in your mind, did you say this?
Did you really
Did
say
I
this?
really hear this correctly?
Yes.
To start this.
Yes.
This thing that's draining
my thing. Oh my goodness, this thing. And so, you can laugh about it when you get to a certain point, but don't ever get, hubris where you think that you have overcome all the way. It's just that you're smarter now. You're making different moves. You're foregoing sometimes a desire, instead of buying this, you buy that. And so it works itself out in the end, but there are many days, many weeks, many months where you're like, did the phone ring today? And who called? Was it my children, my husband? Who called? So that, and of course there are seasons where your client base may act differently, like around Christmas and January. Like summertime. And so those are times where you have to plan for. And when you see the cycle, don't get caught in it again. And so you plan for it so that when the phones don't ring, that you still have a plan that would work for your business continuity. And so, there were many nights, and I won't say that they're fully over, but they're less, far and fewer between.
Yes, indeed. A strategy that worked for me, I learned from someone about 10 years ago, is I shifted my business expenses to 11 months, 11-month cycles, where I pay it based on divided by 11 versus 12. So if it was my rent for my office, I would multiply times 12, divided by 11. So that I always had a month off.
Yes.
Because nothing is on all the time.
Right.
And that strategy saved me in a lot of ways, because I always had that cushion when it hit. it helped a lot when we went through tough times on the real estate side, having that, because we had years of abundance. So we had months of expenses that carried us, which was no credit to myself, just following what I was told. That's why I think it's good to work with entrepreneurs who are, or to have relationships with other entrepreneurs, because some of your best ideas won't even come from your industry. A lot of people think you have to get mentors that are within your niche. You don't need it. You just can have mentors who don't do what you do. They just can know business and give you good guidance. You
don't need it, but I'll go so far to tell you that sometimes they won't necessarily give you the information you need. And I remember when I was branching out with my HR company, I went to a sister who was doing it, and I had worked with her on a number of occasions in a different capacity. And I said, hey, I'm thinking about doing this. Can you share some information with me? She says no. She told me straight up no. And I kind of was shocked, because it wasn't as if you were giving me your business secrets. Yeah. It was that I was asking you just from some general information, some guidance, some mentorship. And she said no. And so I realized, okay, all right, God, that wasn't the one that you sent me to. And so I now had to move away. And I did find other individuals who were in and outside of the industry who were giving me just general business practices that could apply. And sometimes that's what we need. We need, kind of a high view, and then we can start getting a little bit more specific, but you need to understand general business practices, period. And then you can start overlaying your particular industry, your particular company, how things need to be done with your particular industry. But you still need to know checks and balances. You need to know, banking practices. You need to know how to balance your checkbook. You need to know about general contracts, how you should, what you should do in terms of what you should sign and what kinds of contracts that you should get into, and whether or not you should do a personal guarantee or not. And so those are general business practices that we need to be aware of before we get too deep into business. And you can learn that outside of your industry, period.
Indeed. You're hitting on so much gold. I told you this time goes by fast.
It does.
We're almost at the Q&A, but I want to segue. Frequently, again, we're obsessed over entities because they're the buzzwords. People throwing out LLCs and stuff out there, but you're not a business until you make money.
Right.
This is about making money. So don't get so caught up on the image. It hurts me to my heart a little bit, because I remember building, and I'm not gonna top your time too much because this is your hour. But okay. I would see business owners or people that I knew good and well worked a great job for BGE, but in the way they promoted themselves in the marketplace, CEO of Charm City Candles, successful in corporate America, but promoting that thing that's not even launched yet as their identity. That just worried me a little bit, because it made me feel that we've over glamorized this whole thing to make people think that they're not winning on a job, where I feel everybody doesn't have they don't necessarily need to be in business for themselves.
Right.
There's nothing wrong with working somewhere, having a career, and also building your dream at the same time. You don't have to put one behind the other. I think a lot of people fail because they quit their job too soon. I envied that person at one point, because I wish I had daily bread coming to me.
Yeah.
Bi-weekly bread.
Yeah.
Coming, because it's the reality of entrepreneurship isn't always good at the beginning, and it's a tough road. And there's no shame in working while you build your dream. Leverage your day job to fund your vision.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I did other stuff while building. I can admit that. I do other stuff now, because the reality is you have to keep your dream alive, and that might mean working, So yes, that's financial management. Do you mind if I take it to the Q&A?
Go right ahead. Go right ahead.
All right. So first question we have, please, you have an attorney on here. Please Don't inbox me. Don't text me. And please, I'm only watching this. Please send them here. Where do you seek more opportunities for mentorship?
Sure. So I tell people, when they're doing their research, look at your local resources, whether it be the Chamber of Commerce, whether it be your SBA, you want to start there to get your information. But when it comes to mentorship, you want to pay attention. If you want mentorship from within your industry, you want to look at, well, who's out there, who's making waves, who's saying the loudest things that you need to pay attention to. But sometimes you have to ask your friends. You have to ask your network, your social network, your personal network. Let them know about what you're doing, and you'll be surprised how people connect others. And they would say, "I know XYZ who's doing this. I'll talk to you, or I'll talk to them to connect with you." And so it is talking to use what you have is basically what I'm saying. Use the people that you have in your social network, in your business network, and to say, this is what I'm trying to do, and I'm trying to get information and or talk to people who may be able to inform me in this area. And you will be surprised on the connections that you'll make just from the individuals within your personal sphere of influence right now.
It's a good one. The other thing I would say to here is start with who's willing.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Start with who's willing, and then work your way up to the people you desire. If you find someone that's successful, they have nothing to do with what you're doing. You don't need Michael Jordan to teach you how to shoot the basketball.
That's right.
You just need someone who's going to make themselves available. And a lot of the people at the top who you really love to associate yourself with, buy their book.
Yeah.
Get a mentor that will give you time and be accessible to you. Thanks for asking. That's a good question. Hopefully
it's a good question. And sometimes, even if you can't afford, let's say you're looking at an individual and they have a hourly rate of some kind, I guarantee you, if you go to them and say, I can't afford you today, but what do you suggest that I do? They may even suggest a resource. They may tell you something that is, good as gold. And so don't hesitate to just talk to anyone. My husband says, I'll talk to a stop sign, and I don't exactly know what's wrong with that. So talk to everyone, talk to anyone, and just get information where you can, and you'll watch and see how quickly the connections are made.
That's a good one. Really good one. All right, we have another question. They're getting, I have a bashful Betty, but I'm going to put bashful Betty last because she sent me a text. Next, hey, Amanda, thanks for tuning in. Could you explain the proper setup and flow of a parent umbrella companies? Ooh,
that's the big one. Well, it all depends. And so I won't call it proper setup. I think it all depends on what you're trying to achieve. And so, you definitely want to start with the goal. And then I tell people, let's sit down and talk about what it is that you're trying to achieve. How many people are involved in this kind of decision and or business idea? And it really does depend on what you're trying to achieve. And then we'll determine what's the best entity for you and whether or not there is a parent versus, a subsidiary that needs to happen. Sometimes we make things more complicated than necessary. And I tell people simple is better. And that's something that we learned in law school. They said, don't give me a sentence with 14 commas. Simple is better. And so it really does depend on what you're trying to achieve. And then, we would start with that and determine what's the best entity for you. And then whether or not there needs to be a more complicated setup from there.
What she said.
Yeah.
Thanks, Amanda. Please bring the questions. You have the person to ask. Please don't text me later to ask Paulette. She's right here. Please. She's approachable. She's friendly. Look at her. She's ready. All right. Next one. Hey, Hedgepeth, Minister, sir. I'm 6 years into my business and I have a job. Love it. My question is, how do I go about finding out how to get into getting contacts and building in another state?
Okay. And so let me see if I understand this. How do you find out about getting into a market in another state? And so I would tell you to start with that state. So let's say you were outside of Maryland, and you would start with, the Maryland state office and figure out, well, what does it take, number one, to operate in this state. And so you can be incorporated or have a business in one state. And then when you want to branch into another state, you don't necessarily need to actually file another corporation, but you may be able to act as a foreign company in that state. So it really does depend on the state that you're thinking about branching into. But you want to start with the state in terms of how do you file, where do you file, what do you file, and then you'll be surprised that there may be, links where you can get into the actual state, database to find out what contracts are available. In Maryland, of course, there's the whole federal contracts program where you would be able to go to their particular website and determine how you get into those types of contracts. But it really does depend on the state that you're interested in kind of emerging into, and then starting with their state office and finding out what are the requirements to branch into that state to legally function in that state, and then determine where is that particular office that could be the repository of the contracts and, the RFPs that you may need to find out about. So it starts at the top, at the state.
That's your legal answer. I want to give you the practical one that's not legal.
Yes.
Opportunities come from people.
Yes.
Stop looking to the sky. I did that. Stop looking within. Connect with people who are in business in your area. I suggest the Chamber of Commerce joining. I suggest you look for minority business groups in your area. Find a Rotary Club in your area. Find trade organizations. Go on meetups.com, which is a place to find business meetings and groups in your area. Connect with the people. I don't care if it's not directly related. When you're new, getting started, it's people. The more people I connect with, the more my business grows, just because I'm in a people business. So if I can give you that guidance, connect with groups of people who are doing things in your area in the business world. All right, we have another question.
And if I can just add to that too, there are also organizations that are serving as connections, if you will, that they will actually connect you with other people who are in similar businesses as well, so that you can be a resource to each other. I tell people that you have to have your own board of directors, and it means the people that you surround yourself with who can help inform your business. And it doesn't have to be from within your same industry, but there are companies that are out there, associations that are out there that are connecting people. I thought his question was branching into another state, so I apologize.
I love it. And before we go to this next question, I had a buddy of mine, he's on here, but I'm gonna keep anonymous. He shared a strategy I thought was absolutely brilliant. He bought something from someone, and part of the deal was not just that I purchase it, but when I give you your dividends, we need to meet in person for lunch.
Oh, wow.
So I can give you the payment. And that was essential because it allowed him to build a relationship with someone. Oh, I stole it. I stole it because now, again, another person, my deal, he's a mentor. I had a deal with him where I have to buy him lunch ever so often in exchange for him, doing this deal for him. And that lunch pays off exponentially just with what I'm getting. So the other thing is, don't think that people's time is free. Doesn't mean you have to give them money, but you have to show you appreciate people when they give you guidance, help in any way. It goes a long way. This person we have here, Betty Bashful, wants to know, what is the difference between an LLC and an S Corp, and which one should I get for a restaurant? I told you it was coming.
It was coming. It's here. It's here. Well, Betty Bashful, if that's your name, one is an entity and the other one is a tax status. And so your LLC is your entity. The S Corp is your tax status. And so people tend to think that, the S Corp is a company in and of itself. And so what happens is that you can start as an LLC, and then your accountant, you should have conversations with your accountant, and they will determine when is the appropriate time to file. I think it's the 2558 form to elect your status as an S Corp. And that helps you. It just improves your tax, your tax liability, if you will. And so for a restaurant, I wouldn't say that it's particular for a restaurant, but in terms of how your tax filing and the fact that with the S corp you can take contributions, or you don't have to necessarily be on the payroll, and you're able to pay yourself in different ways, which is kind of a better kind of tax position, if you will. And so what I tend to tell people is, when it comes to some of those CPA like questions, I don't operate outside of my lane, but I tell you to call your CPA or get a CPA. I call my CPA for questions on a daily basis, because it is so good. 2553, thank you. It is so good to have someone who can help you to make those decisions, because a lot of our decisions are not just factual. They're laden either in legal or financial issues that if you make the wrong decision, it can impact you. And so I would tell you that speak with your accountant, speak with your CPA, and determine what's the proper time to make that election. Sometimes they'll say to do it from the very beginning, and sometimes they'll say, wait until after a year of your business practices to do it. So as I mentioned, one is an entity in and of itself, and the other one is a tax election.
100%. We have a question from Mr. Lundy. I dread this one. This is a hard one.
I'm not answering his questions. Yes. Okay. I like that question. I know where he's going with that. So one of the
cutting deep, bro. Cutting deep today. I got to stroke a check.
Yes. So one of the pieces of advice that I think we have received and or give out to some clients from time to time is if you are paying yourself, if you are an LLC and you're paying yourself, sometimes you just should pay yourself enough to cover your taxes. Is one of the pieces of advice that we get, because you can take, as an S corp, you can take withdrawals and distributions, and that's how you actually are living, if you will. But you want to ensure that you're paying yourself sufficiently just to cover your taxes. So that's just a strategy that we kind of talk about from here or there.
I can talk about it.
Yeah,
it's tough, because a lot of businesses are barely making it, and they consider survival having enough cash to meet their expenses.
Yeah.
And what they're not counting is you can have a tax debt accrued with no money in the bank.
Yeah.
So if you're not factoring in your tax liability as you incur revenue, the main ones that get people in trouble I'm seeing would be payroll taxes, especially the miscategorization of people as 1099 that are really W-2. Really pay attention to staying in business. And if you're in it for the long haul, you just have to do things on the up and up.
You really do.
No way to shortcut doing things right.
And when you put things off, for instance, if you'd be surprised how quickly those numbers accumulate, right? And so if you say, I'd rather pay my payroll taxes quarterly versus monthly versus whatever, understand that depending on the size of either your staff and or even if you just have to pay taxes because you're an entrepreneur and you're not paying taxes like you would if you were an employee, you have to make sure that you're putting some money aside. Start small, but when you get that tax bill, you'll see how important it was when you had that nice month and you may have gotten some money. You're not thinking about it at that time, but you want to make sure that you're putting money aside. One of the things that I recommend is that you speak with the accountant and say, how much should I put aside? Especially when you're looking back, you can look back at last year, see what you earned. What could you or should you have put aside on a monthly and or quarterly basis? Should you take the money off the top so that you have something to pull back on or to pull from at a later time? But the worst thing is to have a tax bill and not be able to meet that, because that can tie your name up, you tie your business credit up, and it can just really wreak havoc for you in your practices.
All right. You heard it. That's the last question we take. We're out of time. Paulette, please tell them a little bit what to contact you for. How can they contact you? I'm going to put it in the thread also.
All righty. Well, as I mentioned, I'm Paulette Lundy, the principal and founder of the Lundy Law Group. We're here in Columbia, Maryland. The website is www.lundylawgroup.com, not to be confused with the Lundy Law of Pennsylvania that does personal injury. We practice estate planning, business planning, some family law, guardianships. We talked a lot about businesses, but if part of your planning for your business is not that that you haven't talked about succession planning, you haven't talked about estate planning, ensuring that you have secured, your life and the life of your business, the succession of your business, then that's an important part of business as well. So if you're not thinking about that or doing that, then you're not necessarily doing everything that you can to ensure that you have protected yourself, your family, and your assets. So we can help you with estate planning, your business startup, your business succession. If you want to wind down, if you just need help with your contracts and preparing them, reviewing them, whatever it is that you need, look up the Lundy Law Group. We are here for you, and we are an extension of your family. We like to call ourselves the Maryland Legacy Attorney. I am here to help you with all of your business and personal needs.
Excellent. That's our show this week. Thank you so much, Paulette.
You're welcome.
We might need a part 2 of this because we didn't even get into the meat of some stuff that we want. If you all want Paulette to come back, please let us know. But overall, we got to thank our main sponsor is Donnie Glover, Be More News, Black USA News. We appreciate you for putting us on your platform. Can't tell you we thank you enough. Also, Think Black, Kelsey Parker.
Think Black.
Shout out. Thank you, everyone, for all the love you show each week. Thank you. We can't tell you how much we appreciate it. Just showing up, just sharing. We love it. Be blessed. God bless.
All righty. Thank you for having me. Love you guys. Bye-bye.